Hello, friends. So, today we are going to read this wonderful story by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. As you already know, Tagore was awarded the Nobel for Literature in 2013 for his collection of poems Gitanjali. But you would certainly find that he was a great storyteller too. This story straddles the ground in between life and death and ends with something that would remain with you for a long time, forever maybe. Along the way, you would have the opportunity to learn around 100 words, 80 prepositions, and 25 phrasal verbs. A gold mine, isn't it? However, if you are not here to learn the language as such, you could stay till the end of a story, which would take about 20 minutes. A really touching story. One more thing before we start. I would go through the words very quickly so that you would know what you should be looking out for. And for the most of the words in the text, I have provided the meaning in brackets in a small font so that you can skip if you know the meaning already, and you should not let it obstruct your, you know, speed of reading, speed of following the story. Okay, so the words I will explain later also. These words I will just read them quickly. Foster, kinship, thwart, restless, incessant, fancy, scoff, stare, persuade, apparently, consciousness, faint, eternal, vividly, deserted, creature, snap, glimmer, seize, denizen, inhabit, plot, apparition, absurd, modesty, elaborate, eternity, dread, summon, forlorn, abominably, sluggish, solemnly, afraid, astounded, detention, confound, oppress, perplexed, nettled, annoyed, assert, contradict, discrepancy, tremble, ruined, stare, huddle, impending, wail, clench, parched, longing, embrace, flee, companion, anguished, endure, plunge in, drift, revere, fetch, slightly, leap out, split up, scoff at, tiny, choke, damp, corpse, ill omen, marvelous, glimmer, guise, prejudiced, uneasy, abstraction, veil, partiality, distress, resolve, wretched, drown, torrents, downpour, unmoved. So these are the words. About 86, not 100. I'm sorry about that. And then there are an equal number of prepositional uses of prepositions. I'm not going to read them. And then there are 25 phrasal verbs. Okay. So after we are done with the story, because I'm raring to go, I want to read the story. Uh, that is the main thing. And after that, we will go through this grammar thing. So this story will, as I already told you, will take about 20 minutes. Very touching story. Kindly stay. So Living or Dead by Rabindranath Tagore. The widow in the house of Sarda Shankar, the Rani Hat Jamindar, had no relatives of her father's family. One after another, all had died. Nor had she in her husband's family anyone she could call her own, neither husband nor son. Satish, the child of her brother-in-law Sarda Shankar, was her darling. For a long time after his birth, the child's mother had been very ill, and the widow, his aunt Kadimbani, had fostered him. If a woman fosters another's child, her love for him or her is all the stronger because she has no claim upon him, no claim of kinship, that is, but simply the claim of love. Thus, all the widow's thwarted love went out towards this little child. Then, one night, in the month of Shravan, Kadimbani suddenly died. For some reason, her heart stopped beating. Everywhere else, the world continued on its course. Only in this gentle little chest, filled with love for the child, the watch of time stood still forever, afraid that they might be harassed by the police because of the sudden and untimely death. Sarada Shankar arranged 4 Brahmin servants to take away the body without ceremony to be burned. The burning ground, the cremation ground of Ranihat was very far from the village. There was a hut beside a pond, a huge banyan tree near it, and nothing more. Taking the body into the hut, the 4 men sat down to wait for the wood. The time seemed so long that the two of four grew restless and went to see why it had not come. Nitai and Gurucharan having gone, Bidhu and Banmali remained to watch over the body. It was a dark night of Shravan. Heavy clouds hung in a starless sky. The 2 men sat silent in the dark room. Their matches and lamp were useless. The matches were damp and would not light for all their efforts, and the lantern went out. After a long silence, one said, "Brother, it would be good if we had a bowl of tobacco. In our hurry, we brought none." The other answered, "I can run and bring all we want." Bidhu fully understood why Banmali wanted to go, from fear of ghosts, the burning ground being considered haunted. He said, "Oh no, I cannot sit here alone." They fell silent again. 5 minutes seemed like an hour. In their minds, they cursed the two who had gone to fetch the wood, and they began to suspect that they sat gossiping in some pleasant nook. There was no sound anywhere except the incessant noise of frogs and crickets from the pond. Then suddenly they fancied that the bed shook slightly, as if the dead body had turned on its side. Bidhu and Banmali trembled and began muttering Ram Ram. Then a deep sigh was heard in the room. In a moment, the watchers leapt out of the hut and raced for the village. After running about 3 miles, they met their colleagues coming back with a lantern. As a matter of fact, they had gone to smoke and knew nothing about the wood. But they declared that a tree had been cut down and that when it was split up, it would be brought along at once. Then Bidhu and Banmani told them what had happened in the hut. Nitai and Gurucharan scoffed at the story and abused Bidhu and Banmali angrily for leaving their duty. Without delay, all four returned to the hut. As they entered, they saw at once that the body was gone. Nothing but an empty bed remained. They stared at one another. Could a jackal have taken it? But there was no scrap of clothing anywhere. Going outside, they saw that on the mud that had collected at the door of the hut, there were a woman's tiny footprints, newly made. Sarda Shankar was no fool, and they could hardly persuade him to believe in this ghost story. So, after much discussion, the four decided that it would be best to say that the body had been burned. Towards dawn, when the men with the wood arrived, they were told that, owing to their delay, the work had been done without them. There had been some wood in the hut after all. No one was likely to question this, since a dead body is not such a valuable property that anyone would steal it. Everyone knows that, even when there is no sign, life is often secretly present and may begin again in an apparently dead body. Kadambini was not dead. Only the machine of her life had, for some reason, suddenly stopped. When consciousness returned, she saw dense darkness on all sides. She called out, "Sister," but no answer came from the darkness. As she sat up, terror stricken, she remembered her deathbed, the sudden pain at her breast, the beginning of a choking sensation. Her elder sister-in-law was warming milk for the child when Kadimni became faint and fell on the bed, saying with a choking voice, "Sister, bring the child here. I am worried." After that, everything was black, as when an ink pot is upset over an exercise book. Kadimani's memory and consciousness, all the letters of the world's book, in a moment became formless. At first, she thought the lonely dark place was the house of Yam, the god of death, where there is nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to do, only an eternal watch. But when a cold, damp wind drove through the open door, and she heard the croaking of frogs, she remembered vividly, and in a moment, all the rains of her short life, and could feel her kinship with the earth. Then came a flash of lightning, and she saw the pond, the banyan tree, the great plain, the far off trees. She remembered how, at full noon, she had sometimes come to bathe in this pond, and how dreadful death had seemed when she saw a corpse on the burning ground. Her first thought was to return home, but then she reflected, "I am dead. How can I return home? That would bring disaster on them. I have left the kingdom of the living. I am my own ghost." If this were not so, she reasoned, how could she have got out of Sarda Shankar's well guarded house and come to this distant burning ground at midnight? Also, if her funeral rites had not been finished, where had the men gone who should have burned her? Recalling her death moment in Sarda Shankar's brightly lit house, she now found herself alone in a distant, deserted, dark, burning ground. Surely she was no member of earthly society. Surely she was a creature of horror, of ill woman, her own ghost. At this thought, all the bonds were snapped which bound her to the world. She felt that she had marvelous strength, endless freedom. She could do what she liked, go where she pleased. Mad with the inspiration of this new idea, she rushed from the hut like a gust of wind and stood upon the burning ground. All trace of shame or fear had left her. She walked on and on. Her feet grew tired, her body weak. The plain stretched on endlessly. Here and there were paddy fields. Sometimes she found herself standing knee deep in water. At the first glimmer of dawn, she heard one or two birds cry from the bamboo clumps by the distant houses. Then terror seized her. She could not tell in what new relation she stood to the earth and to living folk. So long as she had been on the burning ground, covered by the dark night, she had been fearless, a denizen of her own kingdom. By daylight, the homes of men filled her with fear. Men and ghosts dread each other, for their tribes inhabit different banks of the river of death. Her clothes were clotted in the mud. Strange thoughts and walking by night had given her the aspect of a mad woman. Truly, her apparition was such that people might have been afraid of her, and children might have stoned her or run away. Luckily, the first to catch sight of her was a traveler. He came up and said, "Mother, you look a respectable woman. Wherever are you going? Alone in this guise?" Kademini, unable to collect her thoughts, stared at him in silence. She could not think that she was still in touch with the world, that she looked like a respectable woman, that the traveler was asking her questions. Again the man said, "Come, mother, I will see you home. Tell me where you live." Kadamini thought. To return to her father in law's house would be absurd, and she had no father's house. Then she remembered the friend of her childhood, Jogmaya. She had not seen Jogmaya since the days of her youth, but from time to time they had exchanged letters. They were both sure that if they once met, they would be inseparable. Kadamini said to the traveler, I will go to Jogmaya's house at Nisindapur. As he was going to Calcutta, Nisindapur, though not near, was on his way. So he took Kadambini to sorry, Jogmaya's house and the friends met again. At first they did not recognize one another, but gradually each recognized the features of the other's childhood. What luck, said Jogmaya. I never dreamed that I should see you again. But how have you come here, sister? Your in-laws surely wouldn't let you go. Kadamni remained silent and at last said, sister, do not ask about my in-laws. Give me a corner and treat me as a servant. I'll do your work. What? Cried Jogmaya. Keep you like a servant? Why? You are my closest friend. You are my... and so on and so on. Just then Sripati, Jogmaya's husband, came in. Kadamini stared at him for some time and then went out very slowly. She kept her head uncovered and showed not the slightest modesty or respect. Jogmaya, fearing that Sripati would be prejudiced against her friend, began an elaborate explanation. But Sripati, who readily agreed to anything Jogmaya said, cut short her story and left his wife uneasy in her mind. Kadambini had come, but she was not at one with her friend. That was between them. She could feel no intimacy for others so long as her existence perplexed her and consciousness remained. She would think she has her husband and her work. She lives in a world far away from mine. She shares affection and duty with the people of the world. I am an empty shadow. She is among the living. I am in eternity. Jogmaya was also uneasy, but could not explain why. The greater Kadambini's abstraction became, the more impatient was Jogmaya with her, wondering what trouble weighed upon her mind. Then a new danger arose. Kadambini was afraid of herself, yet she could not flee from herself. Those who fear ghosts fear those who are behind them. Wherever they cannot see, there is fear. But Kadambini's chief terror lay in herself, for she dreaded nothing external. At the dead of night, when alone in her room, she screamed. In the evening, when she saw her shadow in the lamplight, her whole body shook. Watching her fearfulness, the rest of the house fell into a sort of terror. The servants and Jogmaya herself began to see ghosts. One midnight, Kandamuni came out from her bedroom weeping and wailed at Jogmaya's door. Sister, sister, let me lie at your feet. Do not put me by myself. Jogmaya, Jogmaya's anger was no less than her fear. She would have liked to drive Kadambini from the house that very second. The good-natured Sripati, after much effort, succeeded in quieting their guest and put her in the next room. Next day, Sripati was unexpectedly summoned to his wife's apartments. She began to upbraid him. You do you call yourself a man? A woman runs away from her in-laws and enters your house. A month passes, and you have not hinted that she should go away. Nor have I heard the slightest protest from you. I should take it as a favor if you would explain yourself. You men are all alike. Men as a race have a natural partiality for womankind in general, for which women themselves held them accountable. Although Shripati was prepared to touch Jogmaya's body and swear that his kind feeling towards the helpless but beautiful Kadambini was not at all greater than it should be, he could not prove it by his behavior. He thought that her father-in-law's people must have treated this forlorn widow abominably. She could not bear it any longer and was driven to take refuge with him. As she had neither father nor mother, how could he desert her? So saying, he let the matter drop, for he did not want to distress Kadimini by asking her unpleasant questions. His wife then tried other means of getting her sluggish lord into action, until at last he saw that for the sake of peace he must send word to Kadambini's in-laws. He resolved to go to Ranikhet and act on what he learnt. So Shripati went, and Jogmaya, on her part, said to Kadambini, "Friend, it hardly seems proper for you to stay here any longer. What will people say?" Kadambini stared solemnly at Jogmaya and said, what have I to do with people?" Jogmaya was astounded. Then she said sharply, "If you have nothing to do with people, we have. How can we explain the detention of a woman belonging to another house?" Kadambini said, "Where is my father-in-law's house?" Confound it, thought Jogmaya. What will the wretched woman say next? Very slowly, Kadambini said, what have I to do with you? Am I of the earth? You laugh, weave, love. I do none. I merely look. You are human, I a shadow. I cannot understand why God has kept me in this world of yours. So strange were her look and speech that Jogmaya understood something of her drift, though not all. Unable either to dismiss her or to ask her any more questions, she went away, oppressed with thought. It was nearly 10 o'clock at night when Sripati returned from Ranihat. The earth was drowned in torrents of rain. It seemed that the downpour would never stop, that the night would never end. Jogmaya asked, "Well, I have lot to say presently." So saying, Sripati changed his clothes and sat down to supper. Then he lay down for a smoke. His mind was perplexed. His wife stilled her curiosity for a long time. Then she came to his couch and demanded, "What did you hear?" "That you have certainly made a mistake." Jogmaya was nettled. Women never make mistakes, or if they do, a sensible man never mentions them. It is better to take them on his own shoulders. Jogmaya snapped, "May I be permitted to hear how?" Sripati replied, "The woman you have taken into your house is not your Kadambini." Hearing this, she was greatly annoyed, especially since it was her husband who said it. "What? I don't know my own friend. I must come to you to recognize her. You are clever indeed." Shripati explained that there was no need to quarrel about his cleverness. He could prove what he said. There was no doubt that Jogmaya's Kadamni was dead. Jogmaya replied, "Listen, you have certainly made some huge mistake. You have been to the wrong house, or are confused as to what you have heard. Who told you to go yourself? Write a letter, and everything will be cleared up." Shripati was hurt by his wife's lack of faith in him. He produced all sorts of proofs without result. Midnight found them still asserting and contradicting. They both agreed now that Kadamini should be got out of the house. However, they continued to quarrel over her identity. By degrees, their voices became so loud that they forgot that Kadambini was sleeping in the next room. The one said, "We are in a nice fix. I tell you, I heard it with my own ears. Kadambini is long dead." And the other answered angrily, "What do I care about that? I can see her here with my own eyes, surely." At length Jogmaya said, "Very well. Tell me when Kadamini died." She thought that if she could find the discrepancy between the day of death and the date of some letter from Kadambini, she could prove that Sripati had erred. He told her the date of Kadambini's death, and they both saw that it fell on the very day before she came to their house. Jogmaya's heart trembled. Even Sripati was not unmoved. Just then the door flew open. A damp wind swept in and blew the lamp out. The darkness rushed after it and filled the whole house. Kadamini stood in the room. It was nearly 1 o'clock. The rain was pelting outside. Kadamini spoke. "Friend, I am your Kadambini, but I am no longer living. I am dead." Jogmaya screamed with terror. Sripati could not speak. "But even though I am dead, I have done you no wrong. If I have no place among the living, I have none among the dead. Oh, where shall I go? Crying as if to wake the sleeping Creator in the dense night of rain, she asked again, Oh, where shall I go? So saying, Kadamni left her friend fainted in the dark house and went out into the world seeking her own place. It is hard to say how Kadamni reached Ranihat. At first, she showed herself to no one, but spent the whole day in a ruined temple, starving. When the untimely afternoon of the rains was pitch black, the people huddled into their houses for fear of the impending storm. Then Kadambini came forth. Her heart trembled as she reached her father-in-law's house, and when, drying a thick veil over her face, she entered, none of the doorkeepers objected, since they took her for a servant. And the rain was pouring down, and the wind howled. The mistress, Sarada Shankar's wife, was playing cards with her widowed sister. A servant was in the kitchen. The sick child was sleeping in the bedroom. Kadimni, escaping everyone's notice, entered this room. She did not know why she had come to her father-in-law's house. She felt only that she wanted to see her child again. She had no thought where to go next or what to do. In the lighted room, she saw the child sleeping, his fists clenched, his body wasted with fever. At the sight of him, her heart became parched and thirsty. If only she could press that tortured body to her bosom. Immediately, the thought followed I do not exist. Who would take care of this child? His mother loves company, loves gossip and cards. All the time that she left me in charge, she was herself free from anxiety. Now was she troubled about him in the least. Who will look after him now, as I did? The child turned on his side and cried, half asleep, Auntie, give me water. Her darling had not forgotten his auntie. In a fever of excitement, she poured out some water and taking him to her chest, she gave it to him. As long as he was asleep, the child felt no strangeness in taking water from the accustomed hand. But when Kadambani satisfied her long starved longing and kissed him and began rocking him asleep again, he awoke and embraced her. Did you die, auntie? He asked. Yes, darling. And you have come back. Don't die again. Before she could answer, disaster overtook her. One of the maidservants coming in with a glass of milk dropped it and fell down. At the crash, the mistress left her cards and entered the room. She stood like a pillar of wood, unable to flee or speak. Seeing all this, the child too became terrified and burst out weeping. Go away, auntie, he said. Go away. Now, at last, Kadambini understood that she had not died. The old room, the old things, the same child, the same love, all returned to their living state, without change or difference between her and them. In her friend's house, she had felt that her childhood's companion was dead. In her child's room, she knew that the boy's auntie was not dead at all. In anguished tones, she said, Sister, why do you dread me? See, I am as you knew me. Her sister in law could endure no longer and fell into a faint. Sarda Shankar himself entered the room. With folded hands, he said piteously, Is this right? Satish is my only son. Why do you show yourself to him? Are we not your own kin? Since you went, he has become so weak. His fever has become incessant. Day and night he cries, Auntie, Auntie, you have left the world. Break these bonds of Maya. We will perform all funeral honors. Hodamini could bear no more. She cried, Oh, I am not dead. I am not dead. Oh, how can I persuade you that I am not dead? I am living, living. She lifted a brass pot from the ground and dashed it against her forehead. The blood ran from her brow. Look, she cried, I am living. Sarada Shankar stood like an image. The child screamed with fear. The two fainting women lay still. Then Kadambini, shouting, I'm not dead, went down the steps to the Janana well and plunged in. From the upper story, Sarada Shankar heard the splash. All night the rain poured. It poured next day at dawn, was pouring still at noon. By dying, Kadambini had given proof that she was not dead. So, with that, we come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it, and it's a very sad end, and that is why I told you that it will stay with you for a long time. And here we see, uh, as we, uh, as I said earlier, Tagore in this story has straddled the ground between life and death. The protagonist, Kadimbani, herself, she believed for a long time that she had died and she was living as a ghost. She believed herself to be a ghost. But when she met the child, she realized that she had not died. But the people, his brother in law and her sister in law, they thought that they are looking at a ghost. This thing was unbearable for her. And just to prove that she was not dead, she had to actually die. How sad. So that is it, friends. And we will take other stories by Tagore very soon. And now we come to the grammar part. I hope you noticed the meanings in the bracket that I had written. And many of you may be familiar with these words already. If not all, then a greater part. And if they are new to you, then uh, it will be very, I mean, such a big thing that about 80 new words have come to their consciousness now. And the only thing necessary to keep them with you, to make them an active part of your vocab, will be to read this story again and again. You read it, you can read it in the books, or you can see this video again. And after you have read it, say for 5 times, those words as well as the use of prepositions, which we will shortly discuss, will be uh, imprinted on your mind. And that is the only way to learn new words, in my opinion, because words will stay with you if you have read them in context, not separately, not as a part of 50 words list or something. Because there also, if you provide the context, they are isolated concepts and they are no match with the real context as we see in this story. And the story itself is a big bonus for you. You enjoyed the story and you will enjoy other stories also. So let us see about the words. So far we go to the top of the page. So here the first was foster. Foster means to take care. As you see, Kadambani fostered uh, her brother-in-law's child, Satish. Kinship is uh, the thing related to your relatives. Your relatives are your kins, and that relationship is kinship. So Kadambini had nobody in her kinship which she could call her own because she had lost her husband and she did not have her own child. So uh, she felt alone in the whole kinship. She could not call anybody her real own. Thwart. Thwart means, as you read there, her thwarted love because she had nobody of her own, no husband, no child. So she did not have an opportunity to express her love or to shower her love on somebody. But then she found this boy, Satish, her brother-in-law's child, and her thwarted love was totally directed towards that boy. So thwart means to stop somebody from doing something. Thwarted love, the love that she could not explain. Sorry. She could not express. Then restless. Restless means impatient. When the four men who had taken her body to the cremation ground were waiting for the wood to come, they became restless. Two of them became restless and they went out to find why it was not coming. Incessant is continuous. Incessant croaking of frogs and the sounds emanated from the crickets uh, in the cremation ground. And also, we read at some other place incessant rain, continuous rain, without break, without stop. Fancy here, the two men in the hut, they fancied that the body had moved a little. Imagined. They fancied, imagined. Fancy has other meanings also. But here, the contextual meaning you should remember. You should not go after other meanings because as the other context will arise, you will come to know about other uses also. Here, fancy means imagine. Scoff. Scoff means you ridicule something. So when they told the story to the other two who had gone out for a smoke that they what had happened in the hut. They scoffed at him. They ridiculed him because they thought that it was an idiotic idea. It was not true. So they scoffed at them. Stare, if you look at somebody for a long time, it is called staring. They were staring at each other when they found that nobody was there in the hut. Persuade means to convince somebody that something is the case or something is true. And these guys thought that it would be difficult to persuade Sarah Shankar that such a thing has happened. That is why they decided to tell him that the body had been burnt. Apparently means as it appears from the face of it. So, uh, where did we find this word in the story? Apparently, let's see. Apparently was there. Yeah. Apparently, yeah. Everyone knows that even when there's no sign, life is often secretly present and may begin again in an apparently dead body. The which appears from its face, seemingly apparently dead body. Okay? As it looked on the face of it. That is apparently. Then we have consciousness means when you're in your senses, that thing which makes you aware of your surroundings. That is consciousness. When you become unconscious, you don't know what is happening around you. You are not in your senses. So consciousness is that meaning. Faint means when you lose consciousness. So they fainted. Who? The lady when she finally arrived at their house. So her sister-in-law fainted to see apparently the ghost. Eternal means for all time. She thought that she would live eternally because she was a ghost. Vividly means clearly. Deserted. Deserted means here the deserted protagonist. She was standing in a deserted spot. She had been deserted by everybody, kind of. Creature. She thought that she was a creature of horror. She was not a normal human being. She was a creature of horror. A person created by horror itself. Snap means break. So when she thought that she had died, all the bonds that bound her to life snapped, and she felt mighty powerful. Something snaps, the rope snaps, it breaks. So the bond snapped. Glimmer of hope And that means a small faint light, not a bright light, or glimmer, just a small amount that is glimmer. Seized, terror seized her, grabbed her, took her into control. You see, that's why I'm repeating again and again. You read the story so that more or less all the lines get into your consciousness, and then these words will become yours. Denizen, denizen of another world, kind of resident or a member of a particular group. So she became a denizen of the world of dead. That is what she thought. Inhabit means to reside. So living folks inhabit the real world, and the dead have their own world which they inhabit. So these are the two banks of the river of death, uh, as Tagore expressed it. Clot means lump. Her clots were clotted in soil. A blood lump is also called a clot. When a clot reaches your heart, you have trouble. Okay. Apparition means appearance. So her apparition was like that of a mad woman. That is aspect, the look. That is apparition. Absurd, ridiculous. So it will be absurd to go back to her in-laws house. That is what she thought. Modesty, as used here, it was written way back in the first quarter of the 19th century, 20th century. So here, modesty means um, uh, when females wear and behave in a way that does not cause any excitement in the males. That is modesty. So in the olden times, when the ladies saw some, you know, unknown males, they would try to put the veil on their face and something like that. That was called modesty. So because Kadamini thought she was dead, she did not express any modesty when she reached the house and when she saw Sripati, that is Jogmaya's husband. Elaborate means detailed. So when Jogmaya was explaining about her newly arrived friend, she hastened to give him a detailed explanation as to why she had come there and all that. That was elaborate, detailed. Eternity means for all time to come. Dread means fear. So why do you dread me, sister-in-law? Kadimni asks her sister-in-law in the end. I am like you. I am like as you have seen me earlier. Why do you fear me? Why do you dread me? Summon means to call someone. The court sends summons to you, and here Jogmaya summoned her husband to upbraid him, to scold him. That he was not trying to get the lady out of the house. Forlorn means sad and alone. Kadimbani, Sirpati thought, was forlorn, deserted by her in-laws. She was sad and she was alone, so they could not desert her. She was a forlorn lady. Abominably means in a very bad way. So Sripati thought that this forlorn lady, must have been treated abominably by her in-law. That is why she had to run away from the home and she had now taken refuge with them. Sluggish means slow. So here, Yogmaya thought that her husband was sluggish. He was not trying enough to get the lady out of the house. That is why she summoned her to her apartments and upbraided her, scolded her. A sluggish husband. Solemnly means seriously. When she asked, why don't you go to your in-law's house? Then she solemnly says, where is my father-in-law's home? Okay. Upbraid means scold, as we just recounted. Jogmaya called her husband to upbraid him. Astounded means surprised. When Jogmaya says to Kadamni that the people might talk about her staying her in their house, Kadamni said, what have I to do with the people? And Jogmaya was astounded. She was surprised that she could not even comprehend that her staying here was, it would be an abnormal thing. Detention. When you detain somebody, that is TAIN, detain. When you detain somebody, you don't let him or her to move away. You restrain them. So here, people might thought that Kadambani had been detained in their house. So her detention would raise eyebrows. That is what Jogmaya was trying to convey. Confound. Confound means surprised, perplexed. And confound is a cuss word, you know. See, Jogmaya, as you might have noticed, at her answer that I have nothing to do with people, Jogmaya says, confound her. Cuss word. Because she has started disliking her very much. Oppress. Oppress means to trouble somebody. And Jogmaya was oppressed by thought, by, Kadambani's answers, her strange speech. She was oppressed by thought. Perplexed. When Shripati returned from Ranihat, he was perplexed. Why? This was confusing to him, confusing to both husband and wife. That in Ranihat, he found that the lady had died, and here she was with them. Nettled. Nettled means offended. When Shripati said that, he said to her wife that she had made a mistake, she was nettled. She was offended. She thought that she could not have made a mistake at all. It was her husband who had actually made a mistake. Annoyed, angry. She was angry. She was annoyed at her husband's accusation that she had made a mistake. Assert means to state positively. So her husband asserted that that Kadamini had died. Contradict means to say something in opposition, and her wife contradicted her. They both contradicted each other. To say something in opposition. Discrepancy means inconsistency. If there is a discrepancy between two things, means they don't match, they don't make sense. So Yogmaya, Yogmaya was trying to find a discrepancy in the day of her death, Gadambli's death, and the date in one of her letters. She thought that if a letter had come after she had died, it would be a discrepancy. It would not be possible. But apparently, they did not find any letter after her death, date of death. Tremble means to shake with fear. So many times the people trembled in this story. For example, at the last, when they found that she had come back a ghost. Similarly, the people in the hut, when they find that the bed was moving or there was a sigh, so they uh, trembled with fear. Ruined means destroyed. A ruined temple that was there in the was it? There was a ruined temple on the burning ground. Stair means, as we read earlier, this is coming for the second time. Sorry about that. Huddle. When you huddle, you sit closely, in close, you know, touch with others, or you shrink your body deliberately because you are in fear or you are afraid of something. The people huddled in their houses because of the impending storm. Nobody was moving out except Kadamni, who traveled from ruined temple to her in-laws' house. Impending means approaching, something about to happen. The impending storm here. I mean, there were winds howling and raining heavily, and that was a sure indication of an impending storm. Veil means the parda which the ladies uh, have on their face. So Kadambani went into the house after she came from her friend's house. She entered her in-laws' house with a veil on her face, so that the doorkeepers or anybody else could not recognize her. Clench means, closed. The baby was sleeping with clenched fists. Children, you might have noticed, when they sleep, they close their fists very tightly. That is clenched fists. Parched means dry. Her heart was parched. Longing means a desire, an intense desire, particularly which is unlikely to be fulfilled or which has been with you for a long time. That is called longing. A long lasting desire, a desire in you for a long time and which is unlikely to be fulfilled. So you may have a longing for buying an, you know, aeroplane. Okay, no, that's a joke. Embrace. If you embrace somebody, you hug them. So, and you may also embrace a principal, other meanings also. Here, she embraced the child, hugged him. Flee means run away. So, her sister-in-law could neither, move nor could she flee. She could not flee. When she saw her, apparently a ghost, she became rooted to her spot. She could not flee. Companion means partner. So Kadambani, she looked herself as a companion of Jogmaya. Anguished means troubled. In anguished tones, she told her sister, "Don't dread me. I am a human like you." Anguished, troubled, full of sorrow. Endure means bear. So when Sarada Shankar also thought that she was a ghost and told him not to show herself to the child and that she should go away. She had, lived her life. She could not endure it any longer. She could not bear it. And that is why she took the brass pot and dashed it against her head. Plunge in means to go violently, to throw yourself violently into something. Generally, you plunge in the waters. So here, Kadambani, with a view to die and to show that she was actually living before that, she plunged in the well and drowned and died. Drift. What is your drift? General point, general meaning, or you could say main point. So when Kadambani was explaining that she had nothing to do with the people in the world and that she had, you know, nothing like a human beings, then Jogmaya, uh, she understood the drift of her speech, not fully, but she got a hint that what she was hinting at. Perhaps she also got the idea that this lady herself considers a ghost or something. Tagore has not explained it, not elaborated on it, but she had written that she got the drift, if not fully. Revere means to, you know, to hold somebody in high esteem. That is revere. Fetch. When you tell somebody to bring some water for you, and that fellow is sitting beside you at that point of time, he will have to go and bring. That is called fetching. You go and bring. If you are already near the fridge or something and you bring the water, then it will not be fetching. To fetch something, you have to go and then return with the thing. Okay? So they had gone to fetch the wood for the cremation. Slightly means in a small measure. Slightly, we have found in this story for so many times, slightly perplexed, slightly damp wind. Leap out. Leap out of a place means you fly away from that place. You leap out, you jump out. So when they heard a sigh in the hut, first they thought that the body had moved. It had turned on its side. And then they heard a sigh. Then the two watchers, they leapt out of the hut. Okay, because of the fear. Split up means divide in two. About that wood that was going to be used for burning the lady, the guy who had got there, they said that a tree had been cut down, and it was being split up, and that the wood would be coming very shortly. Scoff at. Scoff at means to ridicule. When these two told the story of what had happened in the hut, the other two scoffed at the story. Okay, they ridiculed him. Tiny means very small. Tiny footprints. That was the footprints of Kadimbani when she went out of the hut. So these four guys, they found the tiny footprints on the mud just outside the hut. And that is how they knew that the ghost had run away. Okay, how the body had disappeared. That is what they thought. If you choke, means you have trouble breathing. Something is obstructing your air passages, then you choke. If you eat too rapidly, you might choke. And if you are too much distressed emotionally, then you might choke. So this lady, she was choking somewhere. I forget where. Okay, you can check it out. She was choking somewhere, uh, having difficulty breathing. Damp means slightly wet, damp wind everywhere. Corpse is the dead body. That is a corpse. Ill omen means, uh, you know, a bad sign. Ill omen. I'm an ill omen. I'm a ghost, an ill omen to the living folk. That is what she thought. Marvelous means of a good degree, of the highest degree, in fact. Marvelous, something you say it's marvelous means it's very good. Marvelous arrangement, very good arrangements. And she thought she found herself filled with marvelous strength of highest order. When the bonds between her and life snapped, when she thought that I had died, she suddenly thought that she was marvelously, strong. Then glimmer. Glimmer is faint light. We encountered this earlier. Glimmer, faint light, glimmer of hope. They say some small hope. Somebody is dying, and then the doctors say we have to arrange for something, say a transplant, and we are going to get someone. Then there's a glimmer of hope for the his kins, his family members. Guise means dress. In this guise, where are you going, mother? In this guise, when her clothes were clotted in mud, and the traveler who offered to get her to her house, she asked, "Mother, where are you going in this guise?" Means with these clothes. Means which were not very clean, not sophisticated, though she realized that she came from a respectable family. Okay, prejudiced means when you are prejudiced means you form an um, unfavorable opinion of somebody before considering all the facts. Then you are prejudiced against them. Okay, so Jogma was afraid that her sudden appearance at their house might prejudice her husband. She hastened to make an elaborate explanation. But Sirpati actually did not need that. He was not that kind of fellow. He was unlikely to be prejudiced. Okay? But that was the fear of the lady, Jogmaya. Uneasy means, as you can guess, uncomfortable. So after some time, Jogmaya got uneasy in her mind about their guest. Why? You know that. So she was uneasy, uncomfortable in her mind. Abstraction. Abstraction means if you are consumed by some single thought, you keep thinking of that thing all the time, then you are abstracted by that thought. You are not responding to other people's queries. You are not paying any attention to your surroundings. Then you are abstracted. And her abstraction, Kadambani's abstraction made, Jogmaya very uneasy. Okay. Then wail means weep, to cry. She came one midnight, wailing at her door. Please don't leave me by myself. She was afraid of herself. So don't put me by myself means you always keep me with you. Don't put me in a room. That was her, prayer. Partiality, it's a very simple word. Partiality means if you are partial to something, you show unreasonable favor to them. Okay. So partiality, where did you find this word here? The men folk have a partiality to women. That is what Tagore thought. Means when considering women, they are more kind and they are more graceful. That is what he thought, and that is what he had written. So Sripati he had a partiality, had he? We don't know. Then comes distress. Distress means when you are very unhappy because of something and you're very disturbed, then you are in distress. And Kadamini, as you saw, she was in distress most of the time. Resolve means to not to solve something, decide. To decide to do something, that is to resolve. Okay. So what did Sripati resolve? He resolved that he would go to Rani Hat and find for himself. Okay. Then wretched. Wretched means you call somebody wretched when you think that they're very unfortunate, or if you don't like them, even then you can call them wretched. So here, Jogmaya, after she had started feeling negatively towards Kadambini, at one point she exclaimed, what would this wretched woman say next? Okay, so wretched here means uh, like a kind of cuss word. Then drown. Somebody drowns means they, you know, they die by because they are in a water body and water enters their lungs and then they drown. Here, the town was drowning in the downpour. Means it was raining very heavily, and it was like the town itself was drowning. So here, it had been used in a figurative sense. But in the la- but at uh, in the last stage, when Kadambini plunges herself in the well, she would have drowned. She died. Torrents means water in, you know, uh, very heavy downpour. Water coming in torrents means a lot of water coming down. That is torrents. Downpour is also heavy rain. If somebody is unmoved means they are not affected emotionally. So when Sripati, you know, when the lady Kadambini, she came into their room when they were discussing about her identity, and when she said, "I am not living, I am dead," then Jogmaya screamed with horror, and Sripati was also not unmoved. Yes, he was also afraid. He was also afraid. Okay, guys. So these 86 words, I hope you uh, just look at them and remember where they were used in the story. Because otherwise, if you were to memorize these words, it will take you a long time, and then you will forget. But you cannot forget the story. And to make yourself, uh, immune to forgetfulness about this list. You must read the story again and again. I'm saying it again and again. Okay, so that is it. And then we'll look at some prepositions. Prepositions, I don't have to explain, most of them. You just have to see where they were used in the story. It's not a very long story, and still you can find at least, I have found 80 prepositions, 80 instances where they should, where you should notice how these prepositions have been used. Okay, so for a long time, when the child was born, the child's mother was, sick for a long time. To have claim upon somebody. So when a woman fosters another child, she does not have a claim upon him. Okay, only love, claim of love, not love, claim of kinship. To have claim upon somebody. Her thwarted love went towards the child. Went towards the child. Okay. One night in the month of Shravan. Here I want you to notice in the month of Shravan. For some reason, her heart had stopped beating. Okay. And when it did that, the world held on its course. The world continued as before. Except that seventh time stood still forever in that little chest of Kadambani. Time stood still forever. Far from the village. What was far from the village? The burning ground, the cremation ground. The river completely dried up. Actually, I had edited it out. There was also a mention of a river, but I had edited it out. That river had dried up. That went, that flowed through the cremation ground. Dried up means it had dried completely. Take something into a room. When you move somebody into a room, then to express that movement, you use this preposition into. Somebody may be in a room if it's already there or if he is already there. But if you are taking somebody into the room, inside the room, then you will use into. So they took the body into the hut and wait for somebody or something. They were waiting for wood. To watch over something means to keep a vigil, to see that nothing untoward happens. Then you watch over something. For example, when the two went out, they become restless and they wanted to know why the wood was not coming. The two remained to watch over the body and to sit in a corner. Somebody sits in a corner, Noise of frogs and crickets that were emanating from the pond. Somebody turning on his side. The body moved on its side. Because we were talking about body, we can say it's. Otherwise, it will be his or her. So, somebody turning on his side or her side. And when they heard a sigh, what did they do? They left out of the hut. And further, they raced for the village. They started running fast towards the village. So they raced for the village. And when they told their story to the other two, what did they do? They scoffed at the story, ridiculed. Okay? Return to the hut too. And you stare at somebody. A scrap of clothing. Okay? So when they thought that whether a jackal had taken away the body, they did not find a scrap of cloth. Because if a jackal takes someone away, some parts of the clothing, that shroud over the body, it would have fallen there. But there was not a scrap of clothing. Footprints on the mud. That was Kadambini's footprints on the mud. And would Dayasankar believe in a ghost story? Do you believe in a ghost story? Believe in something. And owing to the delay, sorry, not spelling is wrong here. Owing to the delay, I mean, the guys who were supposed to bring the wood, they delayed a lot, and these guys therefore had an excuse. They said that owing to the delay by you, we have already burned the body uh, with the wood that was available in the hut. Owing to the delay, for some reason, for some reason, the heart in Kadambini's chest stopped beating. Something occurs to you. When an idea comes to you, it occurs to you. Occur to. Something occurs to her. And what actually occurred to her? That she was not in her usual place. Not in her usual place. And she remembered the beginning of a choking sensation when she was dying, apparently. She remembered the beginning of a choking sensation when she could not breathe. Flash of lightning when she saw everything and she realized that she had died. That is what she thought. Flash of lightning. At midnight, you have at noon and at midnight, but in the morning, like in the evening. So there is no explanation for that. Midnight, you will always use with at midnight. Alone in a distant place, not at a distant place. Alone in a distant place. Kadambini was describing, I mean, thinking of herself in this terms. She was alone in a distant place. Something binding her to the world. The bonds, particularly the bond of love with that kid, that bound her to the world. Okay, so something binding her to the world and mad with an idea. So uh, she was mad with the idea that she had marvelous strength after she realized that she had died. After she thought that she had died, she was mad with that idea. So you must have heard Swami Vivekananda's speech when he says that if if you have to achieve something, you have to get mad with the idea. Okay. Stand upon the burning ground, knee deep in water. When she was traveling, she found herself many times knee deep in water. Means she was crossing many rivulets, water bodies. The first glimmer of dawn, when the light is faint, when it's not very bright, that will be called the first glimmer of dawn, early morning. Birds crying from the trees, crying from the trees. Something filled her with fear. Fill something with something. Filled her with fear. Clothes clotted in mud. Walking by night. Means if you have been traveling the whole night, you will say, I have been walking by night. Okay? That's very unusual. You must remember it. When afraid of somebody, you know that. To catch sight of somebody. To suddenly see somebody. That is, to catch sight of them. And in a particular disguise. Or in a particular guise. Okay? In. Are you in touch with somebody? In. Still in touch with somebody. Prejudiced against somebody. So Jogmaya did not want her husband to be prejudiced against Kadambani. And you agree to something. Her husband always agreed to everything that she said. Uneasy in her mind, uncomfortable. She became uncomfortable because of Kadambani's abstraction, because of her weird speech. Her host, Jogmaya, became uneasy in her mind, not at one with her friend. So Kadambani, because of her conviction that she was dead, she did not become close, very close to her friend because death was between them. So she was not at one with her friend. So when you are in a comfortable relationship with somebody, you will say that you are at one with that fellow. You may be at one with the nature when you go to a scenic spot or something. You are at one with the nature. And she was not at one with her friend. And she felt no intimacy for others. Okay. And also, that was the source of greatest frustration for herself. She could not flee for herself. I mean, she could not. think, as you may have gathered from this story, she could not think about committing suicide because she thought that she was already dead. But when she realized that she was not dead, then she plunged in the well at the end of the story just to prove that she was living. Okay? At the dead of the night, at the dead of the night means in the middle of the night, midnight, at the dead of the night. See one's shadow in the lamplight means the shadow that is formed when you are standing before the lamp and you see your shadow. So, how shall you describe that? See your shadow in the lamp light. Fall into a state of terror because of, Kadambani's fearfulness. The whole house fell into a state of terror. Well, at somebody's door, at somebody's door, Kadambani came and wailed at the door of her host. By yourself. She said, don't put me by myself. Means alone. If you do something by yourself, you do it alone. If you are by yourself, you're alone. And succeed in doing something. So succeed is always followed by in. You are successful in doing something, you succeed in doing something. Okay. And you may also remember that whenever a verb follows a preposition, it is always in the ing form. This is an, you know, unbendable rule. It will always be correct if you say succeed in doing something. Okay. Summon to a place, call to a place. So, that lady, Jogmaya, summoned her husband to her apartments, her home. So, the husband and wife, they had separate rooms. Otherwise, you could not have said she summoned her to her apartments. Okay. Run away from home. So, she had run away from her father-in-law's house. Partiality for somebody. So, Jogmaya, when she was upbraiding her husband, Tagore says that men have partiality for women. Okay, whatever that means. To partiality for somebody. Unreasonable favor. Take refuge with somebody means shelter. Take shelter. Refuge with somebody. Distress somebody by asking unpleasant questions. By distress somebody by asking unpleasant questions. To make somebody uncomfortable by putting questions to him or her. On one's part means if you do something, if you're responsible for something, that then it will be said that you have done something on your part. For example, there was some, you know, laxity on the part of the administration. Means the administration did something wrong, uh, which resulted in something very bad. So that was the responsibility on one's part. What you do, what is your responsibility? Okay, have something to do with somebody. So you may remember, Kadamini says, I have got nothing to do with prepositions. Means I'm in no way connected with them. It doesn't concern what they are doing, and it should not concern them what I'm doing. So I have nothing to do with them. Detention of somebody, detention of somebody, when you restrain somebody from moving, drowned in torrents of rain. Tagore is describing the downpour when she was returning to her father-in-law's house at the end of the story, that it was raining so heavily that it looked like the town had drowned in torrents of rain. Great sheets of rain. To be in a fix means to be in a difficult situation. When the husband and wife are, you know, debating about Kadambani's identity, they are in a fix, in a difficult situation, when they don't know what to do next. Discrepancy between two things, something and something else. Inconsistency, something which does not match up. So Kadambani not Kanamini. Jogmaya wanted to see whether there was a discrepancy between the date of her death and the date of any of her letters. Okay, that would prove that she was not dead. Something like this, she thought. Something falling on a particular day. You say that the Christmas this year falls on a Sunday. Something falling on a particular day. Scream with terror. Okay, the child screamed with terror. No place among the living. That is what, that is how Kanamuni describes herself. I have no place among the living and none among the dead. That is what she said. Reach somewhere. There is no preposition, and still I have included here because there are some prepositions when you don't have to you have to be careful not to put any preposition. Zero preposition. You don't reach to somewhere. You don't reach to Mumbai or some other place. You reach there. So the rest should always be followed by the name of that place. When I reach there, when I reach Delhi, etc. People huddled into their houses, sit closely because of the fear you might say, fear of the impending storm. For fear of the impending storm. For fear of. Okay? You play cards with somebody and free from anxiety. Free from anxiety. Kanmani says when she was in charge, her sister-in-law was free from anxiety. Okay. Be troubled about something. You are troubled about something. Something troubles you, and you are troubled about that. In anguished tones, anguished, distressed. So, in the last part of the story, when her sister-in-law is very, uh, she is afraid to say him, and she is rooted to her spot, and she cannot speak coherently. And Kandamini realizes that she is not dead. She says to her sister-in-law in anguished tones, why do you dread me, sister-in-law? I'm living like you. I'm the same as you had seen me before. But the other lady, she fell into a faint. She fainted and she fell into a faint. And you show something to somebody. You show your notebook to your teacher, and Sripati asks Kadambani not to show herself to the child. Okay? Because according to him, she was a ghost. Alright. And in desperation, what did she do? She dashed a brass pot against her forehead. She wanted to show him that the blood is coming out of her wound, and that shows that she was living. But she was not content with that. She went to the full, well and flushed in and died. So that is the list of propositions. And I would again say, read the story several times. Okay, then all these 80 propositions, yeah, there is not much to explain here. You just have to have a feel for them, the prepositions, and then they will stay with you if you have gone through them, 5 or 6 times. Okay, so that is not a bad deal. You spend about an hour for 5 or 6 times, and that is they are all yours. And phrasal verbs that have been used here go out towards her love, went out towards the child because she did not have her own husband or her own child. All her thwarted love, beloved love, they that they went out towards that child. Go out. The world held on its course. Okay. When she died, her heart stopped beating, and the world held on its course. Continued as before. Take away something. You take something away. So you remove from that place. That is taking away something. To watch over something. What were those guys doing in the hut? The two remained and they were watching over the body. Left out of the hut. And when they heard the sigh, they left out of the hut. And they rest for the village. They're not exactly, uh, like you must have heard that it's difficult to guess the meaning of phrasal verbs. So they are not fully phrasal. But every verb here is followed by some adverb or preposition, which makes it more, concrete, more rational. Left out. Of course, they could not have left in. They could have left only out. But when you say left out, it kind of makes the meaning fuller. Similarly, cut down a tree. If you cut a tree, that is also fine. But if you cut down a tree, that gives it the finality. Means you carried out the cutting to its extreme. It came down on the earth. Okay? So cut down a tree, then the tree was split up when it gets divided into two fully. To bring along scoffed at the story, and then she sat up. She was lying in the hut, and then she regained consciousness, and then she sat up. So when she sat, I mean, changed her position from lying to sitting, she kind of moved vertically. So she sat up. Okay. She walked on and on, continued walking for a long time, and area stretched on before her, and the traveler came up to her. Somebody, I mean, suppose you're in a party and um somebody sees you and you see him, and he comes up to you. So you can always say, see, he came up to me, came up. But if somebody come from, another town, you'll not say he came up to me, he came to me. So came up, another context. Then come in, similarly, run away from home, lie down. A damp wind swept in the house and put the lamp out. It blew the lamp out. Comfort. I mean, Kadambani, when she was in the ruined temple for the whole day, and she came forth only in the evening when it was dark and nobody could recognize her. To take somebody for someone else. When you make a mistake in recognizing somebody, so then you say that you took him or her for someone else. Okay? So when Kadambani with a thick veil over her face entered her in-laws house, the doorkeepers did not stop her because they took her for housemaid, servant. And to look after somebody, you know that, to raise somebody, to take care of somebody, that is looking after, to pour out the liquid and to burst out, you may burst out laughing, and to go down the steps. When you climb down, you're going down the steps. Okay, so that is, fiddle verbs. So I would say, guys, it was a very satisfying session, and repetition is the key. And I hope you enjoyed the story. Lot many words and a lot many provisions also. So I hope it was a fruitful session for you. My only request to you, repeat. Repeat the story itself. And when you repeat the story, all these words slowly and steadily become yours. Okay? So thanks. Thanks for your presence. Bye.